This video is occasioned by the confluence of three different things that happened recently, kind of all at the same time. And I had been thinking about doing a video on gaming desire for a while as we just kind of look through while I'm talking some of the cards from Tomb, and this is actually Tomb and Tomb Cryptmaster. I had been wanting this game, craving this game for so long. And for various reasons, I never, oh, look, very similar art. For various reasons, just, I didn't buy it. I didn't ever get it when it came out. Either the trades I saw weren't good or the price was too high or whatever. But recently, I saw someone selling a combination Tomb and Tomb Cryptmaster at what I thought was a reasonable price, and it seemed to be a good seller, and that seller was a good seller. And I bought it, and I got it, and I set it up. And after wanting it for so long and just almost like having this irrational buildup to wanting it, which by the way, it's not really, I mean, there's solitaire rules. It's not like really designed for solo, as you can tell when you play it. And it's a little bit lighter than the games I normally play. But for whatever reason, I think partially because of the title, Tomb is just, this is the box for Tomb Cryptmaster, but the title Tomb is just awesome. I don't know. I just really want it. So I set it up and I played it. And the feeling I had about it when I played it, which we'll come back to, is what made me think about this video. That was the first thing that made me think about doing this video. The second thing that made me think about doing this video was a video I did a little while ago at the end of the year, one of my year-end videos, where I talked about, I can't remember what I called it, game changes or changes that happened over the course of the year, my feeling about games. And in that video, I talked about Magic Realm, and I have documented pretty extensively on my channel my efforts to learn Magic Realm and my feelings about trying to learn Magic Realm and the disappointment that I had in that. Magic Realm was also a game I so strongly desired. I desired this game for many, many years, and that took me a while to get because, you know, it's hard to find a copy. It's hard to find a copy in good shape that's complete, that's not $1,000,000 and whatever. And when I finally did get it and began to play it, I was disappointed and frustrated. And as I've said in a number of places now, I think part of that is on me. Maybe the gaming style that it offers is not one that maybe I have the patience for anymore. And maybe part of it is on the game, that it is somewhat obtuse and whatever. In any event, my desire for this game was not ultimately realized when I finally attained it as a gaming goal. In that other video, I talked about finally just getting ready to sell it, and I think enough comments on the channel have convinced me not to sell it right now, especially since I've got a great copy, and you know, maybe I will come back to it because, well, that is the status of my desire for this game. So that was point number 2 in thinking about preparing my thoughts on Magic Realm for this video, a situation where the desire that I had for it just did not come to be when I finally got it. And then the third thing that happened was just unsolicited by me, at least actively so. I have, you know, a lot of things up on BGG for trade and some for sale. Somebody reached out to me for a trade for a game that I once really, really, really wanted and then never was able to get, another game that's hard to get in the Ambush series. And I had sort of forgotten about it. You know, after having this huge desire for it, I kind of forgot about it. And then somebody reached out and wanted to do a trade for it. And what I would be giving up was a game that I was perfectly willing to give up with. So I decided, sure, let's do the trade. Got my game packed up, and as it was ready to go out the door, I was pretty excited to start thinking about this Battle Hymn again. As it was ready to go out the door, which is sort of where we are right now, the trader wasn't getting back to me about something, so my game is still sitting here, and now maybe the trade might not happen. I don't know. And then, of course, the longer that the trade does not happen now, after being all excited about getting Battle Hymn in and thinking I could do a video. There doesn't seem to be anything on the internet in terms of videos of this game. I could do a discussion unboxing. I could do some example game turns. Maybe I'm not going to get that game. And now I'm thinking like, well, maybe I'm not going to get the game. I didn't really want it anyway. All this led me to question sort of what is it that we mean or talk about when we talk about this desire to have a game? Now, for me, one thing it is not is fear of missing out. I don't have FOMO. I don't, for games anyway. I don't participate in Kickstarters. I might as well look at some of these characters while I'm talking. I don't have that fear of missing out on games. So this is why I'm talking really about just an active desire for a game, not sort of a concern that I'm not going to be in on something. As I said, for a variety of reasons, I don't do Kickstarters, and I don't concern myself with them. I don't think about them. If it's an actual game product and it's a Kickstarter product, I'm happy to try to pay more for it to get it after it is actually a product, as opposed to thinking about it and waiting for it for potentially years at a slightly lower price. I'm not, that's not what I do with my money, but I do desire games, and probably almost everybody watching this far into the video desires games. Else, why would you be watching a YouTube video about gaming? You wouldn't. Understanding the nature of that desire and understanding what causes that desire to fall flat when the game is on the table. Is it about gameplay? Is it about the mechanics? Or is it about the physical product? Is it about just psychology, that once you have something, you don't want it anymore, or you don't want it as much as you did, or it's never as satisfying? Well, to get back to Tomb here, I'm happy to say that I just love playing this game. It is frustrating. It's random. My whole party just died, and so I kind of lost the game, but whatever. I'm just going to keep playing. I didn't flee and I was grossly overpowered by some monster somewhere, and I didn't flee when I should have, and whatever. I threw a whole bunch of dice at it and died, and it's great. It's absolutely great. It is what I thought it would be, and maybe even more, because there's a little bit more decision making than I thought there would be in terms of putting your party together, and some house rules can increase the strategy enough to let me retain my interest. The components are great, the art is great, the amount of cards is great. I mean, it's great. It's great. So my desire for this has been satisfied. I am certain that I will get back in appreciation and enjoyment the expectation that I had, and therefore my desire, at least in this regard, has been satisfied. And we're looking here at a game, Champions of Horror, that I did not know that I wanted until somebody mentioned it on my channel in conjunction with my comment also on that video, I believe, about Mage Knight, and noticing that I hadn't played Mage Knight in the past year and not having really missed it. And a couple people actually mentioned this Champions of Horror as something that perhaps I might want to look into, because I had previously enjoyed Mage Knight, and here it is. I did look into it, I got it, I'm going to be doing a video on it, and it wasn't a game that I had any desire for because I did not know of its existence. And then once I did know of its existence, here we can look at this cool mini. This is Fear, following the character Penelope. Once I did know of its existence, I wanted it. And it was suggested to me, as I said, by a bunch of different viewers, and that was enough to make me look into it. And then when I did, what I saw made me, piqued my interest and made me want to experience this world. And I was able pretty quickly to get my hands on it and to satisfy that desire. And the extent of the desire had not really built up that much, because it was pretty, as mentioned, pretty quickly between the time I ever became aware of the game and the time it landed on my table to actually play. So, how does that inform the expectation? Does that mean that my expectation is greater or lesser? It was like of shorter length. I don't know whether that means what I get out of it to sort of as qualify as a payoff, and I'll say I am enjoying this game, is of a, is there a lower threshold for the payoff because this poor Penelope, is there a lower threshold for the payoff because it's not like I had been really desperately wanting to get this game, and I did want it and I got it and it's good. I don't know. I don't know the answer to these questions. This is just a sort of, it's a question posing video as for the reasons that I said, that just a few things happened that made me think about that. And then just the final thing I'll say on the other end of things is I had wanted underwater cities for a long time. I mentioned elsewhere on the channel that I've been interested in turning toward worker placement games, and pretty soon into that quest, I put my eye on underwater cities, but I just didn't buy it. I felt like I was spending too much money on games, and I held off getting it. And then finally, after thinking about it for quite some time, I just, almost on an impulse for me, the other day, I bought it, and it has arrived, and I took the shrink off, but that's really all I've done with it. So I have had a very high desire for this game, and it will be interesting to me to assess how that is sated and whether or not it, quote unquote, pays off. And again, I don't know what the threshold for it is. I mean, I don't spend money on anything that can't afford to spend. So it's not really about the money. It might be irritation at spending money that, was misplaced, as all happens to us if we buy a game that we don't like. But it's not the concern, or the money doesn't really factor into it, because if I can't afford something, I'm not going to be buying it to start with. That's just me. I realize that's not everybody, but that's how I operate. And so it's not that, but it has something to do with maybe it is just the psychology or the feeling of always looking for something new. And when does that search end? Maybe it just doesn't end. Maybe that's part of the interest in gaming, that you can have things be so disparate and experience such a disparate world and event or experience, I should say, a world and experience of gaming, that it the desire could be fleeting, and could be, it could trade it away and it would still have been worth it, but I got rid of it. And then the final thing, I'm just going to close with a brief look at something that I do plan on a longer video on. I long desired a copy of Greyhawk, and I recently was able to get it for a price that I was willing to pay. And as I said, I'm going to do a video on this. My desire to have this, and my goal in getting it, I think, was extreme, but it was long-standing, because I was just unable to lay my hands on it. And I think there is, at least for me, this falls into the category of, obviously it's gaming, but it's a book, and the experience I have with books and the satisfaction I get with books, I think generally speaking, is going to be always longer standing than that with games. So my suspicion is that this will not ever leave my collection, whereas the games may, and they are just much more ephemeral, and changing. The nature of board gaming, I think, is just more changing. Whereas to me, this is it's a work of gaming literature, not a work of just literature, but something that I would not end up parting with, now that I have finally satisfied my desire to own it. So this is, I'm not having any major conclusions here. I just thought that it's been on my mind lately because of the reasons that I said earlier, and I thought I would share that with you and just get your thoughts on this topic. What do you desire in games, and how do you feel when those desires are fulfilled, and is that a long-lasting feeling or not, or is it just ephemeral? And we'll just look here, this cool mini that also comes with this game, which those of you that stick around to the channel will see in a future video.